Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on achieving radical resilience with Veeam Data Platform. Welcome to the seminar or the webinar in this today. And I also want to thank people across the region to join in this webinar, wherever you are. My name is Stanley, and I am the Channel Services SE covering Southeast Asia and Korea. Now, before we start, if you have any questions during the webinar, please do use the chat function to drop in your queries or your questions, and then I will answer them after my presentation. Okay, let's get going. So today's webinar, I'm going to cover the following agenda. One is the ransomware trends, right? We do release data protection and cloud trends across every year. So part of it is also looking at how companies cope with ransomware attacks and what we see in the next 6 to 12 months down the road in terms of the ransomware cyber attacks. And I also cover a little bit on how we can navigate a cyber attack, especially if there are situations in your organization, or I share some of, perspective of a customer who suffer a particular cyber attack, how they actually embrace the breach. And I'm going to cover a little bit more on the Veeam Data Platform overview features with regards to a lot of things that we talk about today with relation to security and how we actually do, provide radical resilience protection, data protection for your backups and recovery. And of course, I'm going to supplant that with product demos, some of the key features that I talk about in this particular presentation. And then I'll look at the questions that were submitted and probably answer some of the things along the way. So ransomware event frequency. In every year we do the data protection trends report, where we have an unbiased, garner feedback from a lot of customers or folks who are being polled by a particular region. So we really poll close to about 1,200 to 2,000 customers worldwide to get a sense of exactly what do they see in terms of data protection and what trends do we see in terms of ransomware happening in the organization. And the shocking thing that we found out was in 2021, 76% of the companies that we poll will either have some form of ransomware attacks, right? And they can be ranging from, one time to multiple times depending on where the location is. And in 2022, that number basically went up to 85%, right? So you can see that ransomware attacks can occur at any point in time, any way it happens, and how systems get compromised. And some of these organizations, even though they said, 50% of it, they don't really encounter that, but there could be some form of attacks get subtly being introduced into their organization, right? So just be careful on, how you read this information, right? When we poll organization, this is an unbiased polling, so they may hide whatever contents that they have, but they will give information about how much of ransomware attacks that is being suffered by an organization. If you want to know more about the data protection trends report, which we did on a yearly basis, just scan the QR code on the top right corner, which you can actually download the report. Now, in 2023, that number dropped from 85% to 75%. So again, the number of organizations that we poll are quite similar, but slightly higher because we want to get a sense on how those organizations now sees ransomware as a main threat rather than just accidental deletion of data or outages that are being caused by patching and system outage and so on. So most organizations that were hit, all right, believe it or not, all right, were hit on a quarterly basis. So for example, in this particular slides, the ones I highlighted, at least 27% of the uh, respondents who basically been polled say that they encountered at least twice being hit by ransomware attacks, right? And 22% were hit 3 times. So imagine the amount of times that you basically go through in terms of how ransomware do being introduced in an organization and how organizations suffered those attacks over the last 12 months, right? So we did the poll in 2021, there was 76%, 2022 there was 85%, and 2023 it came down to 75%. Right, do take a look at the data protection report to give you more insights into how organizations basically suffer outages because of ransomware attacks. And of course, the shocking thing is most organizations poll on the right side, you see that 11% were hit 4 times by ransomware attacks. All right, 5% of the respondents are hit 5 times, and 1% are hit 6 or more times. Right now, does it mean that any organization being hit were able to recover? Well, some were able to recover. I would say only 19 to 25% were able to recover the data. All right, most of the organizations being hit by ransomware, either they pay up the ransom, right, or get partial recovery based on this. So depending on how customer response or prospect response to any ransomware attack. And I believe in the data protection trends report, we do detail those respondents' answers in terms of how much they can recover the data. And of course, in most cases, a lot of customers do feel that, over the last 12 months, they want to beef up their, protection for ransomware. But in a most understanding way, you need to know exactly how cyber attacks really occur. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to share with you some of the threat actors' actions that basically sits into your organization or a compromised organization, how they basically look at creating a cyber attack or ransomware attack on each organization. So let's start with understanding of cyber attacks, right? Let's look at the timeline of how cyber attacks can happen in any organization, right? So what you see here is more of how we table the timeline. Let's take for a 12-month cycle for a start. Look at the first one is, of course, if a system or a infrastructure that compromised, typically a threat actor will then probably proceed to understand how the environment works in the system, right? Looking at people, process, and technology, right? Why this is important? Because technology allows us to basically do our business, right? Whether it's connect to the internet, or you run a specific application to support the business, and of course, interacting with suppliers or logistical information that requires shipments of goods and so on. This is where information is gathered on people. People are the ones that is fallible, right? I would say to social engineering and so on, and processes where they need to understand how does one compromised victim get to do their daily chores, their daily tasks in any organization, and what kind of technology is in place as well. Are these systems being compromised? Are they patched to the latest updates and so on? This could be also a observation point that any threat actor would then begin to look at. The second one is how they look at, uh, assessing the systems, right? Assessing the infrastructure, gaining access to the victim by maybe a couple of things, right? Once you know how the victims could be looking at very specific information like social media posts, right? Or through an ad, right? Or this particular person is interested in something, right? If we understand the behavior of a compromised victim, right? In this case, we can send them, or the threat actor can send them phishing emails and let them click a link. Now, these links is quite rampant if you are in this part of the world. Links can hold you for information like your login ID, your password, your contact information. In fact, I would also go as far as, the threat actors will probably be looking at all your social media posts or whatever information that they can garner out to give you a perspective of that particular compromised victim. And once you have that information, the threat actor will create a base of operations, right? It could plant themselves into a compromised environment. It could be a victim's PC, a laptop, or even a compromised server, or a application that is not patched. And typically, a threat actor will make that environment redundant and highly available in case a particular system gets shut down because there was a warning or alert by the endpoint system. Right? They can actually move to other victims or other victims, you know, um, technology like PCs or servers as well. And of course, once they get hold of this information, right, the threat actors, they won't snoop around looking at whatever is not being compromised, right? If their system is fully, protected and always being looked after and monitored by any monitoring system, he or she as a threat actor will not look into this. And sometimes they will also change information on those compromised systems, for example elevating themselves with a compromised account and move along the system to understand other process or other tasks that is performed by other people as well, right? What they're looking for is a high value target. Now, the high value targets could be, your C-suite execs or people who hold very critical information, like in the finance department, or even in the data protection world, your backup repository, your backup information, your jobs that you backup your critical information, be whether it's on-prem or to the cloud. And threat actors will typically look at this, right? It will take a bit of time for them to understand, right? So that they'll know exactly what they want to look at in terms of compromising any systems out there. So what they do is they probably plant a certain system which is undetectable, right, in the host or in a program that continues to feed information for him or through a compromised system. And that could happen anyway, right? That's why you probably need a good monitoring system to understand, gives you alert should something be changed, right, in the environment, be whether it is an IP address, the information that's been changed, or there's a file being modified, or even moved from a certain location, or even backup jobs, right? Um, if there's any changes in the backup job, you need to be aware, you need to be alerted on these changes so that you know that somebody actually modified the changes and you want to take immediate action because of that particular action that's been done. And then once the information is being gathered, they know exactly who's the high value target is, they will weaponize the payload. Now, weaponizing payloads could be a lot of things. They could be plant, the encryption algorithms in the services or servers, right, that is being encryption, or they could modify a file, right, so that you put in a ransom mode to tell the compromised victim that this is your vital information is now compromised. And then you can also understand that the threat actors will alter any modification based on the process, especially if there is a system that is being not being locked due to certain conditions. They can change the process to feed information or to send data out of their network to a compromised environment, or they could be changed in documentation or secure systems, right? Especially if systems that is not patched or not turned off, especially for user credentials or elevating, credentials and so on. And of course, the ability to reduce or deny any restore capabilities is also a concern, especially if your backup is not put in a repository that is immutable, right? Any threat actor out there could also change anything, right? Immutability means basically you can't alter any content, you can't remove the content unless you plug out the power for the backup repository. And then, of course, partial encryption or full encryption will take place so that they can actually encrypt a victim's data. They can wipe any information, be it whether it's a backup data or even issue ransomware demands or put up something that says that, hey, your information now, I hold ransom to it, you need to pay that amount of money. Now, this is a typical cyber attack that will go into a system, right? It is not immediate, as you can see. Anything that can happen between, the first month of operation to about 12 months of, operation, so that you go through a series of tasks before even, the threat actor really takes in action. So you just have to make sure that everything that you do at the moment, you need to monitor, you need to be alerted, right? Be it whether somebody actually uses a credential that is not supposed to be looking into very specific information, right? Needs to be locked down as soon as possible. And of course, weaponizing our payloads is something that a threat actor will always do, right? As you can see, progressively over the timeline of the cyber attacks, payloads do include into a individual timeline so that they will not only, weaponize it for gathering of information, but also could be used to, compromise or further compromise a system or application, as well as sending information out of organization, or in this case, if you look at the last part of it, all right, encryption and deleting data, critical data that you can't even restore. And last but not least, this is where something happens, right? A ransom note will be triggered, and then the organization panics and they try to restore the critical data, which is in fact, it can't be done anymore because you now being hold ransom to the data that is being encrypted. Assume breach is a mindset that guides security investments, right? And this is very good because we want to ensure that where everything you do, you have to have good security design principles put in place, right? The principle of assume breach is anything that you do, all right, you have to put in your mindset that anything can happen, right? Something already is in the system, you want to contain it before something gets further and then you are unable to do anything about it. An assumed breach is a mindset that guides security investments, designs, decisions, and operational security practice. Now, we also want to assume breach limits the trust placed in application, services, identities, and networks by treating them all, both internal and external, as not secure, and also probably already been compromised, right? So you want to make sure that you know that something is going to happen, right? And you're not sure basically how you're going to do it. We want to give you a design principle to make compromise difficult. So cybersecurity design principles needs to establish the context before designing a system, make compromise difficult, make this disruption difficult, and of course you want to make sure that compromise detection is easier in, as well by introducing new alert and monitoring systems, and also last but not least, also to reduce the impact of compromise, right? Where if you have already gone through a situation like, for example, you've gone through one round of ransomware attacks, you want to make sure that you beef up your design securities, right? talk to somebody who's already, right, or professionals or experts in designing security for your environment. Talk to Veeam folks to see how we can basically, look at creating a good data protection strategy around immutability, around the 32110 rule, which is basically multiple copies, put that one copy, right, on a immutable storage, making sure that you can use this for restoration without any uh, um, ransomware or malware threats, uh, during recovery options before putting it back to the production environment. And all this comes under a good security design principles. So let's look at the Veeam Data Platform security capabilities. In December 2023, Veeam releases an update to version 12. Now, version 12 was released in February 14, 2023 in the US and EMEA, and February 15 across the APJ region. 12.1 was released in the first week of December, and we do have a lot of new functions, new enhancements, and improvements as well. The key functions include some security capabilities that we're going to go through in the next couple of slides. If you're not aware of the backup and recovery options that Veeam has already been doing this for the last, in fact, 12 to 13 years, this is how we basically covers backup and recovery. We always think backup recovery is critical, but it is not just enough anymore to effectively respond to the ever-growing threats of cyber attacks. Right, we need advanced capabilities to monitor and measure protection, while automating and orchestrating data recovery is also important and is always paramount to achieve resilience. Now, Veeam provides organizations with data resiliency through secure backup, right? Which is fast, reliable recovery options for not just on-prem, but also for the hybrid cloud. We integrate seamlessly with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and we offer native backup and application mobility for Kubernetes environment as well. Additionally, you can also protect Microsoft 365 and Salesforce data to get the recovery flexibility you need, right? Now, if you're ready to get smarter about your company's data resilience strategy, we want you to help you to get you there, right? Now, some of the things that was released in version 12 in February include security features like multi-factor authentication for backup console. Just like your banking app on your mobile phone. Every time you need to log on, you need to transact, you need to be prompted with a multi-factor authentication. So we do have that for the backup console as well. Why? Because remember earlier on I mentioned about the threat actors snooping around looking for compromised systems, and if your backup console or Veeam Data Platform console is lax, right, that particular threat actor can go in and modify any backup jobs, modification to your backup repository, or removing some of the data as well, right? And we also include Veeam's best practices analyzer, where we actually monitor and ensure that your backup infrastructure adhere to security best practices. We have been using this for a long time, right? In fact, most of the customers in Veeam does regularly use the best practice analyzer to check whether are they following the best practice, did they turn off certain services, or getting rid of some of the older APIs, for example, like SSL version that there's one version that is probably not the right version to use. Did you actually update the environment to do this? We also improved the Veeam hardened repository. All right, basically we have a configurator that helps customer to follow the DISA stick configuration. Now, this is the configuration that basically harden a repository, which runs on Linux, so that immutability is being put in place and configured so that anything that you back up in the Veeam hardened repository cannot be changed, cannot be deleted, right? And all this can be introduced as part of the hardening configurator. We also secure our communication for the backup server, the proxies, the repository with multiple communications with the transport layer security version protocol 1.2. We also have secure bare metal recovery with token-based authentication, so that we give a token-based information for any individual to restore any backup through a bare metal recovery procedures. We also support for authentication using Microsoft Group Managed Service accounts. So typically, if you're using Active Directory or LDAP services, for example, right, the passwords will be stored on those services, and no passwords will be recognized or stored in the backup and recovery console or the enterprise manager for that purpose. We also support single-use credentials or key-based authentication for Linux clients, right? This is important because when you need it, we will send the authentication key to the respective SSH clients in order to access the particular host or resources. We support 100% Kerberos and IP version 6 environments, right? A lot of customers out there has already moved on to Kerberos and IP version 6, so we support as of version 12. We also achieved the US Department of Defense Information Network certification and Common Criteria certification as well, right? Do check out our website in terms of certifications that we have responding to security, compliance, and legislations. And of course, like any other software, we quickly address software vulnerabilities, right? Anytime we discover a certain vulnerabilities, we will quickly patch it, and then we will broadcast to customers along the way, so that any updates that we can push to your compromised systems be done as soon as possible. So what's new in version 12.1, which is released in December, right? So we do have something called early threat detection, right? Firstly, this is our newly built-in AI-powered malware detection engine. This brings malware detection earlier in the life cycle, closer to the attack with real-time detection during backup. Very unique in the market because we don't have a specific connection to internet to pull down any updated malware detection framework. So everything is performed through a low impact inline entropy and file extension analysis during the backup for immediate detection. And this works also in a what we call a air-gap environment, where air-gap systems or backup infrastructure is not connected to the internet. The second thing that we have for detection and identifying cyber threats is the proactive threat hunting. Now, proactive threat hunting is a new feature that allows any security team to shift to performing proactive threat hunting, thanks to backup anomalies being immediately reported in your syslog or SIEM systems and ServiceNow, right? Backup anomalies are something that we want to ensure information being alerted to, right? Going back to the cyber threat timeline that I mentioned about. Anything that is being compromised, or that something is not right, you want to make sure that every process or every task will now be logged into your syslog or SIEM tools, so that your organization security team, they actually can really go down and hunker down on that particular log that is being compromised, or performing a triage, for example, all right, and reducing the further risk to your data. And of course, getting a second opinion is also very important. And now you can get a second opinion before you perform any task. For example, like a recovery options from your trusted SIEM tool that accurately marks recovery points as clean, infected, or suspicious using a new Veeam API or Veeam Incident API. Now, this could be triggered from your systems that you work with, right? The Incident API will be saying that, great, now I find something that's happening in your network, in your environment. I want to perform a quick backup, and then mark that particular restore point as something is a valid or clean, and you can use that for recovery options. And in the respond and recover faster from a ransomware purposes, we want to also empower any customer team to reduce the incident response time. So what we have done is also reinfection is also a top concern for any organization, right? In the data protection trend report, you will see a lot of customers or a lot of situations where an organization get hit ransomware more than 2 times, 3 times, and so on, right? We want to avoid any recovery. We want to make sure that no reinfection occurs. That's where the Yara content analysis helps to pinpoint any identified ransomware strains in your backup, all right, to prevent any reintroduction of a malware into your environment. Now, the Yara content are basically used by ransomware researchers to look at very specific, ransomware threats or ransomware strains, right, that is released into the wild, right? You can actually use the various Yara content analysis to do this, right? It could be Lockbit, it could be, some of the popular ones like WannaCry, ransomware, and so on. This could also be used to monitor and look at specific strengths in your backup. And we want to also give you the ability to automate clean recovery by using our automated clean recovery options. This is an orchestrated recovery that you can perform on a um, time frame that you think is important, right? By looking at recovery of your environment using a malware-free restore points. And we included a function called show backup light. This is a smaller version which does not need to basically power up the entire show backup environment using data labs, right, to basically restore. So what we do is we give you an option to just randomly select, part of your backup jobs. Let's say you are backing up 5 VMs, we will probably randomly select 2 to 3 VMs to do this, so that we will scan for anything that's in the backup repo and making sure that you can actually use the recovery restore points for a clean recovery, right? And we also want to give you a ability to recover with precision by performing a point-in-time recovery to the moment prior to infection with a IO and anomaly visualizer. Now, this is only happens if you use the Veeam continuous data protection function, where basically you use a point-in-time recovery to make sure that the restore point is not compromised, and then you can recover very quickly up to the nearest seconds or even minutes a compromise starts to happen. Now, this is a very good feature, I would say, because it gives you a fast restore point with a good incident response time process as well. So how about compliance to give you a secure understanding or protection of your data? You want to make sure that you can guarantee the survival of any organization, right? And one good thing about this is you want to prevent any accidental or malicious detection or deletion, for example, or encryption of backups by employing a zero trust architecture or a four eyes admin protection and immutable backups. Our new platform release ensures that any organization has a secure foundation and avoids the most common security mistakes when it comes to configuring backup. Right? One of them is, of course, using a security and compliance analyzer. Right? This is enhancements to the best practice analyzer. Basically, what we did was we include best known practices to mitigate against ransomware and other cyber attacks. And couple this with our new 4 eyes principle. This reinforces your best line of defense by preventing accidental or malicious deletion of your backup, changes or modification to your backup infrastructure, and ensuring that anything that you perform, you require a secondary backup administrator or administrator that they can actually look into your backup infrastructure to confirm that whatever you're doing. And when it comes to battling cyber criminals, we all know that the best way to defeat a hidden threat is to shine a light on the threat. So in the latest version of 12.1, we include a new functionality embedded into the Veeam Backup and Replication console called the Veeam Threat Center. Now, the Veeam Threat Center is a new enhancement that we'll see in our monitoring and analytics solution called Veeam One. So this is coupled into the product so that you get immediate understanding of where there is a malware existing in your backup. Is there already a compromised environment or compromised workloads that is in your environment that you need to be aware of, and so on. So this is a good way to give you a holistic view of your threat environment. So some guidance in terms of leveraging resources of using the BDP platform. So in terms of inline scanning, in-gas indexing, Yara scans, or AV scans, in fact, AV scans is not new. We have introduced since version 9 of our product, right? Now we have also included as part of an on-demand basis where you can actually use it in concurrent with Yara scan. Now, each of the inline scan will take about 25 to 30% resources, typically on the CPU, on the proxy, because for everything that you've done in terms of changing to monitor the entropy analysis scans and so on, doing a data transfer, we want to make sure that everything that you backed up is free of a malware before even you transport into your backup repository. In-gas indexing is a signature-based scanning that is known for checking back extensions, onion links, or ransomware nodes, right? Basically, what it does is that it compares indexes after each data transfer to ensure that your source machine communicating to the BBR or the Veeam backup and replication server are not compromised. And again, that amount of resources will take about 25 to 30% depending on your workloads. And Yara scan, right, depending on the mount server that you handle in terms of recovering from your backup repository, the IOPS will depend on the Yara rule. The amount of time that it needs the Yara to scan, of course, it takes up a bit more IOPS on the target environment like the mount server. Similarly with the AV scan as well. So let's do a very quick demo of some of the functions that we have mentioned earlier in the slides. So the first up demo is we're going to look at compliant protection for the data. We want to give you a perspective of, let's say, 4 eyes authorization, security and compliance analyzer, and the Veeam Threat Center. Okay, so let's say that I now want to configure a particular user account, right? I want to add something in, and I want to require a additional pair of administrator to basically accept or reject my request. This is where basically I configure it, right? And if let's say I want to delete a particular this from the backup repository, immediately you will see that there is a prompt to tell you that, yeah, if you want to delete it, I will require a approval from another backup operator. So this is how it happens. And you can actually see who requested, whether it's still pending, right? Or I need to reject the request. Because if you want to reject the request, you need to use a secondary backup to do this. The security and compliance analyzer is something that we introduced new in 12.1. So you see that it's analyzing all the best practices that is put in place, right? And you can run this on a daily basis. Now, why you want to do this? Because we want to make sure that nobody goes in and check and uncheck certain settings, right? And you can also, run and generate report and send it to your email address or to a group of folks who wants to look at this, or even to your security team. to say that if anybody is compromising the environment, we want to make sure that is taken care of, right? So there's a lot of things that we put up here, which I think I would recommend that any Veeam customer out there should run right now, and then see how you basically control all these settings. So this is to show you that I can send a report and I can run it on a daily basis and so forth. Right, next, I'm going to show you the Veeam Threat Center. So the Veeam Threat Center is incorporated into the Veeam Backup and Replication. And this is exactly what you will see in the Veeam One product as well. This gives you the scorecard of how the health of your environment looks like. In fact, if you look at the right side, there is already a alert on one infected restore point, because this was basically carried out by a AV scan or a YARA rule scan. It also gives you an overview of the health status of your backup infrastructure, your heat map, especially looking at things that we look at, and including a job calendar as well. Importantly, any RPO anomalies can be configured in the Veeam One product. So this is something that I would also recommend for any Veeam customer to use at this point in time. Okay, next. Next, I want to demo an inline detection scanner, how we basically run using the file index exclusion notification as well. Right, so where do you set up all this information? Right, the first one, there's a malware detection checkbox that you need to do. So you need to do check on the encryption detection for inline entropy analysis, and you can set the sensitivity, right? In fact, by default, if you turn it on, it'll be in normal state. So this will alert on the smallest data set, anything that's encrypted, right? It can also gives you the ability to do this file detection using the YARA rule scan and detecting a large number of files that can be being compromised, right? You can actually put in the files, be excluding the files, certain files, right? Or even certain extensions that you don't want to scan because they could also generate a false positive. Quick backup, right? As I mentioned early on, should an incident happen, I want to perform a quick backup. I just have to trigger from my SIEM or syslog servers and then perform a quick backup and then mark that particular restore point as clean. Okay, the next one is basically showing you what is being done on the backup basis. So you'll see there's a list of this that's being indexes in order to create a metadata, right? For the first run of any backup job after deploying 12.1, indexing will be generated. So every time a backup job is being done, you will compare the indexes during the first run, and then subsequently you will use that as the comparison. Any new full backup job will then remove that index, and real indexing will be done automatically. And you can also send any status update to your syslog servers. So this is to show you basically how we set the syslog server. So you can use any syslog servers of choice, right? It could be SolarWinds, it could be Splunk, it could be Palo Alto, and so on. Right, this is good for your technical analyst or security team to basically look at. Threat Center, right? If you click on Veeam One, all right, we can actually customize what need to be shown on the dashboards. So the dashboards is basically showing you the monitoring aspect of it on all your backup infrastructure. And not only that, we can also trigger reports or enabling changes to the reporting mechanism through Veeam One as well, right? As you can see there, we do have a monitoring alert on the Veeam backup and replication. We also have the monitoring and servicing alert on Veeam backup for M365, as well as your virtual infrastructure. And all this information can be sent through, let's say, your syslog or ServiceNow component right? So that your analyst can take a look and respond accordingly to any threats. Okay, last but not least, respond and recover faster, right? By showing you or demoing the Yara content analysis, and of course the Veeam recovery orchestrator with the clean recovery and the CDP IO anomaly analyzer. So the first thing is, of course, we look at scanning for your backups, your past backups, right? Whether is there anything that is being compromised before even you check on restoring it. So there's a new option called Scan Backup, a quick way to scan your backup. You can find the last clean restore point, or you can decide a range to do this, right? Or you scan all contents or restore points in the range, and you can actually use your antivirus engine to scan for any AV or YARA scan. In this case, you see there's a bunch of YARAs that we can use depending on the threat level or threat information. So let's say I start on selecting the previous range, and I want to scan to make sure that I have a clean restore point if I need to restore a particular resource or workloads, like for example, an application, or let's say email, or even restoring a particular file that is being compromised and so forth. So this is the process that will take place. You will mount that workloads, and then you will start to scan and so on, right? If there's a malware detected, it will be shown here that there is a infection that is occurred in one of the particular resources. Once you've done that, you can actually do a couple of things. One is you mark it, if it's as a false positive, you mark it as clean, right? Or if it's reinfected, then you will declare that as something that you cannot be used to do a restore, right? Or you want to look at what is being in the workload and decided to do this. So if you want to do a automated recovery orchestration of the resources that you backed up, right? The Vim recovery orchestrator gives you a very good way to do this, right? It also documents, the recovery process. Why is it important? Because you want to make sure that you can actually recover uh, with a sound of mind. Make sure that you scan your restore points for any possible malware before even restore. And you can do this, by setting up recovery procedures using the Beam recovery orchestrator. And you can also document the process. What are the workloads that you want to restore, be it whether they include a virus scan or Yara rule scan and so forth, right, into your recovery orchestration portion of it. And this is a very powerful software to do this, so that anything that you want to recover and making sure that you can actually be secure, um, restore onto your particular production environment, you can do this. The next screen will show you the CDP IO anomaly analyzer. So again, this is the checkpoints that we use to do a particular restore point, right? Because you are actually trying to restore up to a certain point in time, right? So that could be a seconds ago, that could be a minute ago, that could be about an hour ago, so that you can actually use a clean restore point for restoration back to your production. Okay, so that's quite a fair bit of demo on the security part. The green ones basically highlight that was being demoed, right? Um, and basically, like I said, a lot of things that happens in the update for 12.1. In many cases, we will see there's a lot of functional features that can be used by any customer. In fact, 12.1 is considered quite a major release for us, because there's a whole list of major functions and features that we put in place for version 12.1. Do work with your local country resellers or even Veeam folks, if you want to know more about any of those products out there. And if you want to know more about our 23 half two updates, right, where we talk about detection and identifying cyber threats, responding to any situation and recover faster ransomware, or how to just secure your environment, making sure that your environment is compliant enough for the data. Do use that to try it now, right? Go to the QR code on the left side, fill in those information, and then the Veeam folks will get in touch with you. Okay, I think that's basically it on for the Veeam Data Platform security enhancements and capabilities. Let me check if there's any chat out there. Any questions? Okay, I got one question here. I think it's great to see improvements to show backup, especially support for NSX-T. One of the challenges that we face today is the length of time it takes to run a show backup job due to the number of machines in it, right? And this customer has seen a request in the public forum to allow for testing random VMs. Is there any news on this feature request? Yes, as I mentioned, we did have the ability built in already in the show backup capability, where you can select or let the system select a random VMs for secure restore. And you can also put in, the AV scanners as well as YARA schools rules to check for any compromised backup, right? And of course, specifying the number of random machines can be tested as part of a show backup job. This will be truly a random in the sense of it. It will not keep track of what machines have been previously been tested. This is in addition to the ability to explicitly exclude objects from the job as well. So that's another question here. One of the challenges that we face with BRL today is post-restore configuration changes, particularly when we are restoring a virtual machine from on-prem, let's say, to a public cloud like Azure. Is there any way to automate what might be manual changes today? This is a good question, and the answer is yes. With the new VRO version 7, you now have the ability to run a script at the machine level as part of the recovery process. This can be incredibly useful for post-restore operations, for any operations, right? You may need to make such as altering your networking information, changing your permissions, right? Or even have to include a custom script that it needs to be run in order to bring up those services. Either way, you can now add a custom script as a step in your recovery plan. Okay, let me see, is there any other question? All right, feel free to put in the questions. We still have 7 more minutes before to the hour. Okay, one question here is talking about where can you learn more about the Veeam Recovery Orchestrator? Okay, of course, if you want to know more, do go to our veeam.com website, search for the Veeam Recovery Orchestrator, or even to the latest Veeam Data Platform version 12.1. There's tons of information which you can look at, right? In fact, I really encourage you to download and try it out yourselves, put it in a trial environment, test out the backup features, especially the ones that we talk about in terms of inline scanning and malware detection, and using that to do a recovery, right? I think we pride ourselves in having good recovery procedures so that whatever you do from a recovery standpoint, we can recover very quickly, but also securely as well. Yep, good questions. Oh yeah, one question that is in popped up. Where can you download that version 12.1? In fact, you can also go to the same site, veeam.com, create an account if you do have one, right? There's an option for you to do a trial. Select the Veeam Data Platform version, all right? Submit the information that is required, download, and then somebody will come back to you on the trial key and responding accordingly. If you have a partner, there's a Veeam partner, do also work with them, all right? Get them to help you with that request so that you can test out the latest features as well. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I thank you today for your attendance and looking forward to see you guys again on the next webinar. Thank you and have a good day.